To live in Italy, I need to be a citizen. But it's not that simple. The rules in Italy have recently changed, which means I can no longer apply through my mother, even though she is Italian. When she came to Australia, she nationalised, she became an Australian before I was born, which means now that path of descent is closed with the new rules. Then there's my father, who I've always known as Slovenian, but he arrived in Australia as an Italian. It says so on his identity card that I found on the Bonaghilia immigration camp records, where he arrived as a refugee. Now, I have printed out the card for you to have a look at. So, as you can see, he's Italian. So which is he? Italian or Slovenian? If I can find the right documents proving that my father was in fact Slovenian, I may be able to apply through my grandfather and finally obtain a European passport. And that would give me what I need to be able to work and live in Italy. I know who he is. I stood in his village last year, walked the land, worked the vineyards with my cousins. I know where he comes from, but knowing and proving are two different things. The Slovenian consulate couldn't find any records of my father's birth or his father. So now I'm left wondering, can I actually become a citizen of the place I feel so connected to? Hi, I'm Nevis, Australian born to European parents. My mother is from Italy, Calabria, a small town called Palmi. And my father, well, as far as I know, he's Slovenian, from a little town close to the border called Vedrian. My dad, Peter, left what was Yugoslavia when he was just 16. He was captured and placed in a camp in Italy, where he worked for 2 years without pay. When I met his uncles, they told me how they escaped, walking through moonlight, crossing borders from Yugoslavia through Italy and then into France, all the way to La Rochelle. That's over 1,500 kilometres on foot at night. Now, I try and imagine that, but I've got nothing to compare that to. So for me, it's unimaginable. Eventually, my dad had the opportunity to leave Italy as a skilled refugee. He initially chose Canada, but that boat was full. So he jumped on the next boat, which happened to be Australia. When he arrived, he was sent to Bonaghilia immigration camp, where again, he worked for 2 years to pay off his passage. He was sent to North Queensland, working on the sugarcane fields, then in a quarry, breaking rock by hand. Eventually, he found his way back to what he knew, which was building, and he worked his way down south to Victoria, working on big projects, including the Flinders Street station build. He once told me a story about working for these big companies where he was checking the footings of a big build, so he's down deep in this hole. And then all of a sudden they start pouring the concrete in without actually realising he was there. He almost got buried alive. So after that, he never worked for big companies again. So with my heritage, I may be able to claim both Italian and Slovenian citizenship. But neither will be simple. The Italian rules have changed, making it more difficult than before. When I spoke to the Italian consulate, they said I can actually still apply through residency. So that means living there in Italy. The problem is you can't work while you're doing that. So you need some other income coming from somewhere, which I don't have. But even that is not completely clear because the consulate said you need to ask your own little commune what their particular rules are because everywhere is different. Then there's my father. But the further I look, the more complex it gets. I thought I was just tracing one country, Slovenia, formerly known as Yugoslavia. But the deeper I go, the more I realise that this region doesn't just belong to one place. It's right on the border, right next to Italy, under Austria, and then there's Slovenia. So at one point in history, it was under Austrian rule. And then between, let me have a look, I've got it written down, between 1918 and World War II, it was under the Italian rule. And that's where it gets a bit more confusing because my father was born just before the war. So does that actually make him Italian? So as you can see, it's complicated, it's messy, and it's incomplete. So the only way forward is to go there myself, to the towns, the churches, to the places where records might still exist, because births weren't always recorded, but baptisms were. And both my parents are Roman Catholic. So maybe somewhere there's still a trace of where it all began. I don't know yet if I'll become a citizen, but I do know this. My dad left his place, his home, without knowing where he was going, without having a path. And I feel like in similar ways, I'm doing the same thing, but in reverse. An unmapped journey back to where it all began. My ancestral roots are finally pulling me home.